us. You are mostly welcome. Thank you very much for you are coming. We are living in a world of change. Education is our future.
Good evening. My name is Chana North Hofstede, and I am the board chair of Surge for Water. Welcome from my home to all of you that are joining us for the first time tonight, and especially to those who have supported us since the founding. If you are just getting to know us, Surge partners with community-based organizations to end extreme poverty through water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions. Together, we develop sustainable infrastructure and educational programs such as rehabilitating wells, building toilets, and hygiene training to improve health and well-being that empower communities. Since our founding, we've impacted over 1 million lives in 11 countries. Today, we're active in Haiti, a country I have personally visited with Surge, Uganda, the Philippines, and the Dominican Republic. In 2019, Surge was able to impact over 60,000 people and had record-breaking successes at our yearly Chicago, Minneapolis, and Dubai events. We had plans to capitalize on momentum in 2020 and push for more growth, but to our surprise, this year has not gone as planned. So a heartfelt thank you to each of you that have supported Surge with donation, your time, and expertise in recent months. We loved seeing you on our Sunday yoga classes, soap making event, and are grateful for your donations during our recent Giving Tuesday Now. Without you, Surge could not continue to support its mission. First, we want to give special thanks to our returning sponsors, Aquaphoenix and Boca, for donating another $5,000 and $4,000 respectively to our global work. We'd also like to thank a few brand partners who are here on this call and make this event possible. Zadro Web, Optimus, who made the video you'll be seeing shortly, and of course, Photoserve. Second, your collective support has helped Surge raise funds for our COVID-19 response, allowing us to prepare and provide sustainable solutions in Haiti and Uganda during these uncertain times and beyond. We're very excited to share that we're only $10,000 away from reaching our $50,000 goal for this phase of our response. So if you're inspired tonight, as you help us lift up voices from our communities, please give to support our COVID-19 response. I know many of you are feeling hardship in a new way and on a daily basis. So while we're uncertain about our plans for events later this year, we know moments like right now help us build our community and our long-term collective strength. If tonight you choose to hope with us in the light of hardship, please donate so we can continue to work together for sustainable change in our lives and in our vulnerable communities. Visit the chat right now and throughout tonight for the link to donate. Shortly, you'll hear from Shilpa Alva, founder of Surge, and Brittany Girle, co-founder of Photoserve, as they discuss the effects of COVID-19 on the developing world and the impact of our work. I am profoundly grateful for all of you for joining us, and I'll be answering questions in the chat throughout tonight's event if you'd like to learn more about Surge and our work. We are very excited to bring the voices of the most vulnerable to the forefront and highlight our shared responsibility to be proactive about the resilience of our global community and for the sustainability of our people and planet. But first, I'd like to invite you to the field.
For 11 years, Surge for Water has been providing vulnerable communities around the world with access to some of life's most essential needs, such as water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions. Now more than ever, water and soap save lives, yet 3 billion people don't have a way to wash their hands at home. But we're out to make a difference. Right now, our teams are installing critical hand washing stations. These aren't only going in homes, but also in hospitals and markets. helping people stay safe where it matters most. Through our partners, we're producing and distributing soap and even teaching communities how to make their own. We're also making cloth masks and educating on COVID-19 prevention, including how to wash hands properly. But while Surge is on the ground taking action in our global communities, we also stand with each of you in our deeply connected world. As we care for the weakest among us, we know that we are stronger together. Access to fresh, clean water continues to be a life-changing source for hope and joy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Shilpa Alva, the founder and executive director of Surge for Water. On behalf of our global family, I welcome each of you here tonight. As you just saw in that video, there are 3 billion people who lack access to wash their hands in their homes. Yet we talk about water and soap being the most effective way to stop the spread. An article I just read from Global Citizen talked about 40 million people that are expected to drop back into levels of extreme poverty. The 300,000 people that we serve in our communities in Uganda and Haiti are all part of this large statistic. And while these numbers are harsh, we understand that just quoting these numbers and these big facts are really hard to grasp. And for that reason, I invited my dear friend, the co-founder and executive director of Photoserve, Brittany Girle, to join us tonight. And I've asked her to interview me. And the reason I invited Brittany is because who else besides Photoserve would be in this unique opportunity or take this unique opportunity to help us lift up voices from the field. So Brittany, before I hand you the interviewer role, I'd like to start by asking you a question. Could you please share Photoserve's mission? Could you introduce yourself first, then share Photoserve's mission, and most importantly, talk about your connection to Surge and why this matters to you?
Absolutely. So first of all, let me say how honored I am to be here to represent both Photoserve and Surge. This is a really important conversation, but we also want to make it a conversation. And so Photoserve is an organization that we created to really bridge the gap between creatives and nonprofits that are doing incredible work around the world. So we create opportunities for photographers to actually go to the field and partner firsthand with nonprofits. They go, they experience their work, we serve alongside them, and then we capture that work and we give those images back to the nonprofit to use to help further their mission. So many of the pictures that you've seen to promote this event or even that you're going to see tonight are from our Photoserve team. So for those of you that are here tonight because you support Photoserve or myself, this is a perfect example of what you're a part of and what you're helping to support. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for supporting our work so that we can support others. So Shilpa, this actually leads me into my first question. And part of why I feel so connected to Surge's work is because I have had the opportunity the last 2 summers to take a team to Uganda, to be in the field firsthand. And so a lot of the questions I've had from friends that have been down there, they're asking me, what is happening in these developing communities with this COVID crisis? How are they being affected? And, how is the developing world really dealing with that right now?
Thank you for that question, Brittany. And that's a very hard conversation because the situation is quite bad. So first of all, what I want to talk about is the fact that this is clearly a global crisis, right? Whether you're in the developing world or the developed world, you're being impacted in some way that's quite significant. And then you have governments that are reacting in completely different ways and citizens who are really just being impacted by that government response. So when we talk about the communities we serve in Uganda and Haiti, they are developing countries and our communities are people who are living in extreme poverty. So the United Nations defines people who live in extreme poverty as people who make under $1.90 a day. And a lot of the people we serve are in sort of this informal labor market, right? So you're talking about jobs that are market vendors, street vendors, a lot of agricultural jobs where they do the agricultural work, but they also have to go to the markets to sell their produce, transportation providers. And there's no such thing as savings. So when you have a crisis like this, where countries go on lockdown, both Uganda and Haiti are on lockdown, differently enforced, of course. But when you are in a situation where you have a lockdown and people's livelihoods are interrupted, you're going to have large scale issues happening. Schools being closed where there's no, there's no connectivity, there's no such thing even as online learning. And of course, I mean, we provide the water and sanitation. So the fact that a lot of their water sources are swamps and, just places where it's unclean water, that causes a lot of issues. But what I would like to do is, one of the things that we did in preparation for this event and to share with everybody is that we asked our community members and our leaders to share these stories of hardship. And we actually interviewed someone that Brittany. Do you remember Ateem Grace from Uganda?
I do, because she made fun of me because I didn't know my neighbors, and they have such close-knit communities. So I actually baked cookies for my neighbors and met them all after meeting her in Uganda.
That's amazing. We need to let her know that she inspired that action. But yes, I would love for all of you to meet the Honorable Ateem Grace from Cabramatta Uganda, where she shares her story of hardship.
Giangra ya mutoto mera makere kiri tuo me corona kita me affecting kira wan bala joping gima gege amete timara racha metete mene wan bala joping tie mina wa kechie totwal o mako jo business dalia tiodnyo ye pona ber jo lete timo business pien jo le te karachiel ka odalia tie totolo pake soma midwe miona idwe nyo odubi we do dokri idwe go podo ge age soma jonyual moko te ko chulo sente paka chamo te ko chulo boboda ekelo goro iude pien le wure be chulo chimoto mano dako da to mano so na sane duoko jori ti pacho so sawana toto wure jotiebe de tuomo wigi pien business ami chulo rama tima me duoko ture le ametie dako da business ami rama timo le ametie wure bi dwede nyo ti pacho so ekelo domestic violence atwal imiere wure jotiebe de dipo wigi pien business ame jote timo ame romo guoko nyo miere le ametie so ekelo bo paka kech pien epora mena joro mo pukere bale woro be ngochi chemo jo to ko wilo kodere mo ganyen chemo yo to wilo kodi so ro tiar go to epone me odnyo le ametie do bo be tekero toda bun mon to mera bala mona nywal.
Yeah, so Brittany, when I've watched that multiple times in preparation for today, and I find it heartbreaking, right? Like we're talking about people we know who are on the brink of starvation because of things like their farming community. And if they can't get seeds, that's a big deal, right? It's a big deal for that next harvest, which is their livelihood. And just that whole thing, like it came on really towards the end. So I don't know if people caught it, but expecting mothers not being able to get to a hospital in like Soroti or other towns because the ferry is no longer operating. And the health centers that are in Cabramatta and Kalaki, the areas that we serve, they didn't have enough soap. Like they don't have hand washing stations like for their patients. So these are, no personal protective equipment. So that's the kind of hardship that we're seeing.
I think that the thing that has stood out to me the most is the parallel between what we're experiencing here and there, and the difference is the lack of resources, and that is answering some of the biggest questions of, are they experiencing that in the same way? And that's, for me personally, knowing her, it's tough to hear, and knowing that we're all experiencing so many disparities in the world right now. So I've got another question for you, and that makes me think, if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat, because as we talk, I know I have more questions that come up. So put those in the chat and then we'll get to those. But let me ask another question for you. So I know that one of the areas where Surge does a great deal of work is in Haiti. And so recently NPR published an article that said that in Cité Soleil, which that's one of the largest cities in Haiti, and it's actually the largest slum in the Western Hemisphere, and it's considered one of the most, maybe the most dangerous in the world. that a lot of larger organizations, they're not able to help people because it's such a difficult area to help. But I know that Surge is working there currently. So how are you able to do that? How are you able to work in that situation, that community?
Yeah, so I actually also read that article in NPR, and there was that, and was also another article that the Washington Post published, and they're exposing some of these issues in Haiti because a lot of us were hoping, especially those of us who work there, and like we have close community ties to the country. We were hoping that Haiti might have been spared this pandemic, but even as of I checked right before actually this event, and they were like over 500 cases. And it's quickly growing. And you're absolutely right. A lot of the poor people live in the slum areas, and the slums are controlled by gangs. And that makes it very hard for organizations to come in and work there. And the fact that Surge is able to work there is really just a testament to our model. We've been doing this work for 11 years, right? We didn't just start in response to COVID. So we've been doing this work for 11 years. And we've actually been working in Cité Soleil since 2017. And I still remember when we first started to work there, we were warned even by Haitians that, that's a dangerous area. Are you sure? And the only reason we were able to work there was because we were connected to really strong community leaders who are not part of the gangs, but are respected by the gangs, right? Because they're doing really beautiful things to uplift members of the community. So we had those relationships. The other part of it is that when we talk about our model again of using like local labor, we don't just mean that we're hiring locals in Haiti, because Haiti with 11 million people is still a big country, right? We talk about hiring local to that community. So it's not only that we're hiring locals in Cité Soleil. We work in an area within Cité Soleil called Bourneuf, which has 40,000 people. And our employees, our team on the ground is from Bourneuf. So these are people who have grown up in this community, right? They've known the gang leaders their whole life. They might have been friends with their children. They go to the same church. So we're in the situation where we built these really strong relationships where we've almost been given the permission to do great work, because in the end, what we're doing is just positive for everyone. And that's been really, really rewarding to see that our teams that can still do their work in this time. And actually, it's really funny because I did ask some of our community partners to talk specifically about their response to how they deal with the gangs. And they did not want to get caught on camera speaking about that because it could be really dangerous. So I felt a little irresponsible even asking. So I learned something through that process. But we do have Judeline Joseph, who is a supervisor of a partner organization, Anakawana Community. And she is from Bourneuf in Cité Soleil, just this amazingly strong woman who is on the front lines, leading a team to fight COVID in her community. So I would like all of you to meet a dear friend, Judeline Joseph.
Bonjour tout le monde, non pas moi c'est Judeline Joseph, je vais parler nous des situations habitants Cité Soleil face avec COVID-19 là. Moun yo vraiment vulnérable face avec pandémie ça parce que y a vivre en groupe dans yon chambre kay gen plus passer 5 à 6 moun qui vivent là-dedans. Plus marché yo, transport yo qui pas vraiment contrôlé. Programme ça a en pile importance tant que sensibilisation n'a fait dans commune nan, vinn rappeler moun yo qui jan pour protéger tête yo, même que yo y a vivre en groupe et puis activité ça rappeler yo que yo doit laver main yo plus souvent.
So one of the things that really stands out to me about that video is, the culture. We're in a situation where we're seeing on the news and everywhere to keep 6 feet apart. And I know I have friends that live in the Dominican Republic. We're seeing this video in Haiti. It's just not possible in some of these areas with the markets and the way that people live. I know you all work in other places. So this is what's happening in this part of Haiti. So what does your response look like in other parts of Haiti and the different areas, maybe in Uganda, that you're working?
Yeah, it's very different. So right now, our COVID response is active in Cité Soleil, which is an urban environment, right? So what Judeline was talking about are those crowded homes and like busy markets. And there's an element of that in our other communities as well, because markets everywhere in the communities we work in are crowded, because that's where everybody goes to sell their wares if they're allowed to. In this whole lockdown period, it's been a little confusing in some of the countries. But Cité Soleil is an urban environment, and then we also work in Cabramatta in Haiti, which is very rural. So there's a central area that's quite crowded, but everybody else is living in the mountains and they're quite far apart. And then, of course, Brittany, you would remember in Uganda, right? Like, I mean, there's Main Street is a little crowded, but then it's really farmland, right? It's just wide open space. So even though the elements of what we're doing are the same, like we are making sure people have water, that they have soap, that they have protective equipment such as masks, that they have the education, those elements are the same, but how we're doing it really depends on the community we're in. So for example, we're installing hand washing stations in all of those communities, right? But in Cité Soleil, what we're doing is, because there's still sort of these like people can get to like central places on the streets, we are making sure that the hand washing stations are outside certain shops, that they are, you know, they're basically positioned in strategic areas, maybe outside the church again, you know, things like that. In Cabramatta, I mean, people live in mountains, like there's no central place, right? So over there, we are teaching community members how to build these simple structures called tippy taps. I don't have the time right now to get into that, but happy to later if there's more questions on it. And then in Uganda, what we decided to do, a really effective thing that we did there is that, you know, we've been working on wells since 2016, and we've, you know, there's like almost 100 that we've helped rehabilitate and build. We've been putting hand washing stations at the wells, so then we know that everybody has to go collect water, right? And that, of course, they need to wash their hands in their homes as well, but this is a way to reinforce it. So every intervention has a different way we're delivering it in the countries. What I want to transition to, if that's okay, Brittany, is like, I want to bring up, introduce all of you actually to another amazing leader that we work with in the field. Her name is Florence Ringe. She is the director of Prince of Peace of Orphans, Widows, and she's basically our partner in the deepest sort of way in Uganda. But Florence is a role model to me. She's just one of the most inspirational, strongest women I've ever met. I don't know, Brittany, I don't know if there's enough words that can describe the strength of Florence. Do you want to add to that since you know her?
No, I don't think there are enough words. She's friends with my mom on Facebook. So she's just, I don't know, she's an incredible woman. She has been like a mentor to me and such an example. And yeah, I feel honored. I know I have friends on here tonight, so I feel honored for them to get to meet her as well.
Well, so I would like all of you at this moment to please meet Florence Ringe from Cabramatta, Uganda. She talks about how Surge and our partner organization, POPO, is implementing our COVID response.
We started in providing hand washing facilities to health facilities and to social places like prison and police where we have prisoners, and then to the markets, to the community water sources. Because of the inadequate resources, we encourage the the community water leaders to make tippy taps, and then we reinforce this by teaching communities to make soap for hand washing. We've introduced radio programs as a means to engage the stakeholders and the communities in the time of COVID. And through this radio program, we bring different stakeholders, we bring different players, different leaders, people in the communities, influential people who can come and talk.
So that's awesome. That's awesome to see Florence there. One of the things that stands out is that radio show that they show there. And I would love to hear more about that and how you all are using those radio shows. Obviously, we wake up every day here and we tune in the news to see what's going on. Yeah. So, I mean, so many parallels between our world and, you know, we're all doing it the best we can with this situation. So how are you all using those radio shows in Uganda and Haiti?
Yeah, so we, in the past, we've used radio shows to raise awareness, but we've never done it in this sort of intensive way. So one of the things that we have to be very concerned about is keeping our team safe. So as COVID does spread, we need to make sure that we can spread information effectively and efficiently. So the radio has become one of those ways. The other piece of it is that the radio is a way you can, when we're working in really, really poor areas, there is still a lot of access to radio, among other things. There's no such thing as television. I mean, smartphones maybe a little bit, but like in Cabramatta, like not really, right? So it just depends on where we are. So we actually have radio shows that run weekly in both City Soleil, Haiti, and in Cabramatta, Uganda. And they have a little bit of a different format. I just learned yesterday that our radio show in City Soleil has potential listeners of up to 100,000 people. And it just blew my mind. So every Tuesday morning from 7 to 9 a.m. on Radio Bookman, like our teams are, talking about how to protect yourself from COVID, but also using that as a platform to understand and hear like what the community is worried about so that we can cater our response to what we hear from them. And then in Uganda, the show it's also a couple of hour show every week. And the show takes on a little bit of a different format. I'm not sure if you recognize that, Brittany, but a Team Grace was in there. For the rest of you, that was the woman we saw right at the beginning who talked about the hardships. So here you have this woman who's going through so much with her own family, but there she is as a leader sitting on this radio show and speaking about issues that she's having so that maybe other people can relate, and then providing these solutions. So every week it has a different theme. The underlying core message is obviously how to protect yourself in the time of COVID, but we give the community a platform to ask questions, to like talk about these burning things. And this last week, our show had young children on there. They were the speakers, and they spoke to the youth. So that's just an example of how we've been using these different modalities. And I want to say one more thing, and that is that not everybody has a radio. So in addition to the radio shows, we also have our teams walking around with megaphones, and they're just like really just screaming out messages of hope and how to protect yourself. And there was a little clip of that in like the opening video, but that's just another innovative way that we are responding to the crisis at hand.
That's awesome. I'm telling you, like, I just see so many parallels between it all, and hearing what's happening in these communities and, how they're experiencing it. It's the same. Every city here is different, and to know for us, I mean, we're a bunch of photographers. And so to know that we can be a part of the work that's being done to actually save lives, it's really important. And I appreciate being a part of that. So one of the things I want to ask you about is, in America, we have seen this like deep thread of hope, in the midst of what is one of the most difficult times most of us have ever lived through. We're seeing a spirit of unity. We're meeting our neighbors. There is hope rising up in the darkness. Do you see this, this spirit of hope coming up in other parts of the world in the areas that you all are serving?
Yeah, we do. And it's just this most beautiful, like almost like unbelievable way, right? Because when I hear the hardships, like it's hard for me to hear a Team Grace's video, right? It was hard for me to, like someone we know, Brittany, right, to hear the struggles that she's going through and her neighbors are going through. These aren't disconnected people. These are people we've met multiple times and we've built relationships with. And so she actually sent a clip that was very long. We only showed you about a minute of it, but in her story, right after she shared all those hardships, she just went right into talking about everything has an advantage and a disadvantage. So let me tell you about the advantages. And she was talking about the fact that now that there's this lockdown in Uganda, all the fathers are at home because typically they'd be working in the cities. And so she's like, children can finally get to know their dads. And she was talking about the fact that there's all this education that the parents are now teaching their children because there's no online learning. The fact that the families are together, when they can get seeds, they can farm more because they don't have, the labor is their hands, right? There's no machines. So like she just went on listing all of these things of hope. And another really cool thing that happened is on that radio show where you guys saw that picture of her, she talked about the domestic violence issues, but she also talked about the fact that expecting mothers cannot get on the ferry to go to like larger hospitals. And the government officials in Cabramatta actually heard that show. And right after that show, they basically went on air and said that they will make sure that if anybody needs to get to a hospital, they'll find a way to get them there. So just these beautiful threads that keep coming out. And then of course, right, one of the things that I want to like, that's really important, you know, we keep talking about like just everybody who's been tuned in this last 30 minutes, hears us talk about this holistic situation in our communities. And I want to reinforce that the reason we're not just talking about water, sanitation, and hygiene is because Surge's mission, even though that's core to Surge's mission, our goal is to provide those tools as a way to eliminate poverty and to lift up people, right? So even when Ateem Gray shared her struggles, there was a whole section where she just shared how much hope we brought to the community because we have fixed her community well in Majengo, right? There's all these water points, all the hospitals that did not have hand washing facilities, every single one right now in Kalaki and Cabramatta have hand washing facilities and access to soap because of the support of all of you. So to me, these are like amazing threads of hope. And I can keep going, but I would like to introduce you at this point to another mentor of mine, Dr. Girle. He is a medical doctor who is from Cabramatta in Haiti. And he studied in Montreal and in Cuba. And he just has these grand visions for making the world a better place. And he's just such an example to me because in my personal story, right, like I left my corporate world career and dedicated my life to serving through Surge. And Dr. Girle is someone who, you know, inspired me to actually make this change because back in the day when I used to be doing Surge part-time, I talked with him and he basically told me that, you know, he had all these job offers after his completion of his medical studies to work in Montreal, but he decided that he wanted to go back to his village in Cabramatta and serve his people because that was his calling. And it really made me listen to my calling. So forever, he's just someone that I deeply respect. And I have this honor of introducing all of you to Dr. Girle from Cabramatta in Haiti.
Et dans le cadre de travail, ça, nous avons déjà touché 2000 familles qui vivent dans la commune. C'est tout le monde qui vit dans la zone rurale. C'est un travail qui est intéressant pile et la population vraiment apprécie ça. Et grâce à travail ASLA, ensemble avec Serge, ensemble avec l'autre acteur qui sont terrain, jusqu'à présent, il faut qu'on recense la maladie dans Cabramatta. Nous ne pas voulons rester là avec le travail, nous voulons continuer avec le travail. C'est important pour nous, même pour nous continuer avec eux, parce que nous voulons toucher plus de familles toujours. Au moins, nous sommes arrivés et nous avons touché à peu près 8 à 10 000 familles encore. Pour ça, nous avons besoin de mettre plus de promoteurs de santé dans le cadre pour nous capables de toucher l'autre localité avec l'autre zone. Jusqu'à présent, nous pouvons arriver à toucher. Nous remercions Serge Forwater, nous remercions vous-même qui te bail ces moyens pour capable supporter nous dans le programme ça. Nous connaissons que la situation économique là est difficile parce que la pandémie Covid là, il touche les business, il touche les entreprises et il touche même le travail. Mais quand même, nous faisons appel à la solidarité pour voir si ensemble avec nous, ensemble avec Serge Forwater, nous sommes capables d'éviter une catastrophe sanitaire dans la communauté.
Yeah, so Brittany, just Dr. Girle's message, right, about the fact that in just the last, like, really, I think it's been 6 weeks or so from our response in Cabramatta, they've already been able to reach 2,000 families. And to me, that's another message of hope. And, you know, the point of today was to share these beautiful stories and give our partners and in the field this voice so that all of you could hear them. As part of that message, If you have been inspired by what you have heard, I have to do my job as the executive director and honestly just make this ask that if you've been inspired and you would like to give to supporting these communities, whether it's through supporting our hygiene promoters, or soap making classes, or hand washing stations, right? There's multiple levels and there's no such thing as too little or too much. So Chana mentioned this earlier, and we set a $10,000 goal for this event because this phase of work to serve the 300,000 people we are serving at this moment requires about $50,000, right? And this is providing hygiene training, it's paying for the radio shows, it is installing hand washing stations in all these homes, all the door-to-door education, as well as that education with megaphones, and it all costs money, right? So we are really grateful for everybody who has already given, but if you're able to contribute to this fund, it is deeply appreciated because it continues that message of hope. And the exciting news I want to share is that as that video was playing, I did check our donation link, and we mentioned a $10,000 goal, and we are already at $7,000. So thank you to everybody who has donated so far. We got a $5,000 donation from the Peters family, so a special thank you to them. So that just leaves us with a $3,000 gap. So again, any amount, and there's no amount too small, goes directly towards our response and resilience in our communities. So with that, Brittany, do you have any questions for me?
I do, and it's, part of this tonight is just to know what's happening in the world and how we can be a part of it and how we can help. So, for me, I walk away even more educated about what's happening as I see our own news and everything else. So thank you for bringing those voices to light to give us insight into those worlds. I do have a question for you. And again, if any of you have questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll read them. So as you were talking, one of the things I'm wondering about is, so obviously we know that soap, water, hygiene, it's an important way to flatten the curve, stop the spread. That is the exact same thing that we're doing here. So can you talk a little bit about why Surge, I know you just taught a soap making class and you teach soap making rather than buying and distributing soap. So why do you do that?
A big part of our model is to make sure that we build local capacity. And so even when we're looking at our response in the times of COVID, like we just looked at things that we've already been doing, right? We've actually been teaching soap making classes way before the time of COVID, because that's core to our mission, to make sure that people have access to soap. But if we just provided soap, right, it's a consumable and we just have to keep purchasing it. So by teaching communities how to make their own soap, we're creating this like lifelong like skill. And the way our communities work, and this kind of goes across both our Cabramatta and Cabramatta situation, no one keeps that knowledge to themselves. So if they learn something, they're going to teach their neighbors and their children and their aunties and uncles, right? So you're really creating this true ripple effect. And in response to one of our soap making classes, one of the officers, it's medical officer from the Ochero Health Center in Uganda, he basically said to us, he's like, this is great. We were not getting enough soap from the national stores. So we can now buy these ingredients and make this ourselves. He's like, I'm really happy for my hospital, but I'm even happier for myself because I can now make soap for my family and I can teach my neighbors. The market vendors are thrilled because they all plan to make soap and sell it, right? So it's creating a revenue stream. And I also want to talk about the fact that in Haiti, we partner with, in addition to teaching soap making classes in Cabramatta, in Cité Soleil, we actually partner with an organization called Anakana Community that are in Port-au-Prince. And they do something that's really, really cool. They take old soaps from hotels that would normally go to like a dump, right? And be just discarded, and they sanitize it and they upcycle and recycle that soap. So in that situation, we are buying soap, but we're basically staying true to our commitment to the environment and to providing jobs to the people who are making the soap.
That's awesome. And the whole time you were talking, I was thinking, I get it. My mom is making hand sanitizer. So it's, we're all figuring out what we need at this time and how to protect ourselves. And when we get those things, we feel that much more protected and, like we can handle at least a little bit what is before us. So there's some questions from the audience. So I'm gonna ask you these. Scott is wondering, he said, what a great mission. What does the organization need help with?
Thank you for asking that, Scott. So at this particular time, our immediate focus is our COVID response. So we definitely need funding in order to continue that response. So I mentioned earlier that we have the $10,000 goal tonight. So again, any contribution in terms of any amount would be helpful. And I'm just going to reinforce this, that it goes towards soap making classes, hygiene promoters, hand washing stations in homes, health centers and markets, awareness programs, which include like the radio broadcast and like the megaphones, and then just door-to-door awareness, as including customized education materials. But what I also want to take this opportunity to say is that our long-term focus is still there. We still need to continue to build rainwater harvest tanks, fix wells, build latrines, right? That hasn't gone away. That's still an essential need for survival. So any funds that come to us will get put into this response and resilience fund. So as possible, we will continue to fund infrastructure projects because that's core to what we're doing. The other thing I'm going to say is obviously not everybody is in a position to give. So if you aren't in a position to give, please share our mission with your friends and family, like us on social media, where, if Jen or Chana can put our handle into the chat, please take a picture right now and say that you were on this call and just really bring others, spread awareness. This call was about raising voices, and we have all those videos and we're going to share them on our social channels beyond today. So there's going to be many ways. If you want to volunteer with us, we have volunteer roles, board member roles. So there's multiple ways to get involved. So maybe even if our website link is on there, you can also please email us through our website.
Scott, you're set. Tons of ways to get involved. So we have a question, and I love this one because it's coming from a 7-year-old. So Marta and Cricket, and they would like to know what she can do to make, send, and teach others how to make soap.
I'm not sure I wonder if Marta and Cricket, hi Marta and Cricket, first of all. I'm wondering if they're talking about making soap here or making soap and sending it to Uganda. So I'm not sure about that. I'm going to assume that Cricket, just knowing what a sweet girl she is, because I know her personally, she probably wants to help directly in Uganda. So Cricket, what I would say to you is that it's important for you. We had a soap making class about a couple weeks ago, and we'll send you that link so that you can follow it. And we even have an extra kit, so we might send that to you as well, and you can learn how to make soap. And then what I think that you should do is make that soap and give it to shelters in your area, because actually even in the United States, the homeless shelters are not getting enough hygiene supply donations. And that's the best way that you can help with a hands-on way. As far as the field is concerned, it would be way too expensive for us to ship that product all the way to the field. So it's important for you to help here. And then your mom and dad have been very generous with Surge, so we have the funds through them to continue our classes with continuing our classes in Haiti and Uganda. So thanks, Jeff and Marta, for that.
That's awesome. I think that's a link. The information on how to make soap is something that people can do at home, and lots of people will be interested in. So, okay, Jay has a question for us. He said, I can find that it can be hard to measure the crisis in some of the areas that Surge works. Are there any areas that are struggling more than others? And if so, how is Surge responding to the particular needs of those areas in comparison to the areas where they're relatively successful in combating COVID?
Yeah, Jay, you've been in Uganda, so I'm sure you're asking from that perspective, right? It's a great question because, are there really only 260 cases in Uganda? I don't know, right? Our government's not publishing the real information. These are just big questions that we all have. All we know is that when we provide access to water and soap, it honestly is needed beyond COVID or not. So we're just staying focused on the fact that people need a way to wash their hands. That statistic that we shared right at the beginning, where 3 billion people don't have hand washing stations in their home. I'm not okay with that. Like none of us at Surge are okay with that. And I know, Jay, you're not okay with that either, because you've been there and you've met these people in this community. You know Florence. You probably met a Team Grace as well. So it's a little hard for us to like figure out where to focus or not. Where to like hyper focus, because we're serving all our communities. What we're doing is just, again, a testament to our model. We're just listening to what our communities are telling us, and we're trusting them. So if they're saying that, look, we want megaphones and we want 24 of them, we're like, okay, we'll find a way to get you 24 megaphones. In City Soleil, we just got a message from our partners saying, we need boots because when it rains, we can't get out. And we're like, we didn't budget for boots in our hygiene response, but then we're like, wait a minute, we need our teams to stay safe and we need to give them dignity. Of course they need rain boots, right? So we are responding to what our teams are telling us. We're trusting them because these are long-term relationships, and we are continuing to serve people in that way.
Awesome. All right, so we have a question from Harleen. She's wondering what other events are coming up.
Harleen, thank you for asking that question. So we have for all the women and girls on this call, we have a Women's Empowerment, Wellness, and Health and Wellness event on May 30th. It is also a virtual event, and we're doing it in 2 time zones. We're actually doing it May 30th, 11 a.m. Dubai time. We're also doing it May 30th, 11 a.m. Chicago Central Standard Time. So we'll also put that link in the chat and send it to you as a follow-up to this event. And we encourage women and girls of all ages to please join us. For all the men and boys on this call, we have not left you out. We don't have any events planned for you right now, but based on the success of this, I mean, I think at one point there were almost 100 participants in here, and I know there are multiple people that are joining one computer with multiple people watching. So I think we've had over 100 viewers today, and I would just say that maybe we'll do more of these. We also, Chana mentioned this earlier, we don't know the state of our annual galas this year, and it's likely that normally happens in September of this year. So please stay tuned to the things that we're going to do to bring our gala to you, both in Dubai, Chicago, and Minneapolis in new and innovative ways. So that's not till the fall, but you'll hear from us about that very soon.
Awesome. So the soap making is very popular. So we're wondering, Stephanie is wondering, and I know I'm thinking about for my niece and nephew, would you be able to provide that soap making link to everyone? Is that something that they can find somewhere at Surge?
Yes, we can provide it to everyone who registered to this call. Yeah. We might even, actually, that's a good idea. Maybe we can post it online as well.
Cool. I know that gives people a way, to serve here and to have a really tangible way. And I think I've got time for one more question for you. So let's see. Can you speak, Amal is asking, can you speak more about the plans for the COVID-19 response in the Dominican Republic and the Philippines?
Yes, I can, and thank you, Amal, for remembering that we work in other countries besides Uganda and Haiti. This call has been focused on where we're delivering our COVID-19 response, but Surge also actively works in those countries. The Dominican Republic has over 13,000 cases, they're the most hit in the Caribbean. And the Philippines also has 13,000 cases, just larger population size though. We had to make some hard decisions when COVID hit the world. We were impacted financially, and we're expecting further impact as our galas unfold. So we decided to focus our efforts, and this kind of relates to Jay's question again a little bit. That's where we made one of those decisions. We decided to put our efforts where our teams were already working on a response in the work that they were doing and were able to, because the lockdowns did not prevent them from going to work and doing our work. So I would say that as funds allow, we will definitely continue to support our other communities. We are committed to them. We are actually already in conversations with our partner, Clean Water Philippines, in the Philippines to understand what their needs are. And we're just really hoping that we're able to raise the funds to support both the Philippines and the DR in their efforts as well. We probably have time for one more question, Brittany, if there are any.
Let's see. There is one more question. So Jan is wondering, what will the start of 2021 look like in the field across Surge's different locations?
Well, I hope it's very different from the start of 2020, right? That's a beautiful question of hope. I since I don't really know what 2021 is going to look like, I can tell you what I envision. I hope, Brittany, that you and I can go back to our communities and capture more of these stories and really like understand how people have gone, how they dealt with this issue, and hopefully they've come out of it. Um, I hope that the world looks to a new normal, right? Like we've talked about this all the time. Like these are the issues that we're seeing are just fundamental, like issues on inequality and injustices. And my hope is that through this crisis, we come out stronger as humanity in the way we're connected, and that the developing world is further along because people understand that we are more connected as humanity.
Awesome. Well, Shilpa, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Before I say my final thank yous, I actually have a question for you, Brittany. I would love for you to share, since you've come to the field and you've captured beautiful images, right? The stunning, you and the team, the rest at Photoserve have captured these stunning images from the field. I would love if you could help us start ending this event on this message of hope by sharing one of those images, one of your favorites, and telling us about it and why it brings you hope.
Absolutely. Yep. I would love to end on a message of hope with that. I think that Jen is going to try and put that image up for you. So of all the pictures I've taken, I was thinking, what is an image of hope? And to me, I get teary talking about this is one of my favorites. This entire picture embodies, it embodies a spirit of hope to me. In Uganda, it is so much a part of the culture too, to sing and to dance and to celebrate. And they do this in the midst of the hardest circumstances. And so for me and for all of us as a humanity that are very much feeling the impacts of this, my hope for all of us is that during this time, this image can kind of be a symbol that this is a spirit that we take on as a community, that we take on this spirit of joy and this spirit of celebration, that even in the hardest times, I've seen them dance where they don't know if they'll have any clean water, and dance when things are really hard. And so I hope that as we continue in this global pandemic that we are very much in the midst of right now, I hope that we can walk through this together and that we can carry that same spirit of hope and celebration for whatever we face going forward.
That's really beautiful, Brittany. Thank you for sharing that. When I look at this image, I see the children's faces behind, and they were in as much of awe as we were, right? And how beautiful them to be looking at these women, their leaders in their community, dancing in this way and celebrating. And I see the woman in the middle, and her leg is raised a bit. And to me, when I see that leg raised, I see something that shows that people are rising. Like you're almost emerging, right, out of a situation that is so hard, but you know that as long as you can lift that leg up, the metaphorical leg, right, whatever it is, you can rise over and above it. And that to me is like just the strongest, most beautiful way to express it, through dance and through movement, and to the fact that we'll all get through this and we'll all rise above and emerge in a better, stronger way. So thank you, Brittany, for your time tonight. I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved in putting together this virtual event. I'd like to recognize Jennifer Long, first of all, our Associate Executive Director, who has been running the show behind the scenes. So hi, Jen, and thank you. I think, if we can give her a round of applause. I know the rest of you can't see her, but me and Brittany can. So thank you, Jen, for running this meeting behind the scenes. I want to thank Brianna Peters, who's a 13-year-old high school student in Dubai, who put together all those videos on voices. We got this raw footage from the field. So it wasn't the high quality that I'm very grateful that Optimus put together this beautiful high quality image that we showed right at the beginning. But the rest of the footage was directly from the field, where there are no sophisticated cameras. And Brianna did an amazing job putting that together. And Daryl Barnes, also a high school student, put all those captions in so we could understand the foreign languages and make our world a little bit smaller. Also want to thank our entirely volunteer board. of 32 strong in Dubai and all across the US. So we have an associate board, a governing board, and an advisory board. So thank you to all of you for all the work that you've been putting in, all the volunteers that are involved with Surge. Am I forgetting anyone? I think I am, but while I think about who I'm forgetting, yes, we're forgetting the people on the front lines. We're forgetting our partner organizations, Raja Pre, Rava Gap, Anakauna Community, and Popo. And the 36 team members who are actually out there stopping the spread of COVID. And with that, I would like to share a final voice from the field.
This is how we express our gratitude, love, and appreciation.
Thank you, everyone. The most important part of all of this is you, the donor, the supporter, the sponsor. Thank you for being here, and have a good night.